Good morning and welcome back to Margin. This morning we're going to talk about how to order your debt payoff. So let's jump right into it. So we started out this theme talking about a plan to spend. And as you build a plan to spend, debt will be a part of your plan as long as you're in debt, of course. Now, 80% of the population has some sort or some form of debt. And so with that, I'm speaking to an audience that 8 out of 10 of you have some kind of debt. So with that, you want to make a plan to pay off, to aggressively pay down and pay off that debt. So there are so many people I meet who are living paycheck to paycheck, even though they may have incomes that don't justify that. Now, you always think of the single mom with the 4 kids who are living paycheck to paycheck, but I actually beg to differ. I bet that there are so many more people than you believe that are living paycheck to paycheck. And oftentimes this is caused by the fact that people aren't building margin into their personal finances. So oftentimes in low or relatively low interest bearing environments, people justify their purchases. And what can end up happening in that is that they don't look at the stress and risk that comes along with that. They assume that everything's going to be as it is now, and they don't factor in the stress in the back of their minds that weigh them down from all those payments. And although you may be able to afford that car payment or that house payment, doesn't mean that you can afford that item. And I have said this before, but it's important to let it sink in that you need to look at your finances from a standpoint of, can I actually afford this item? Or am I just looking like I can afford this item? So today I want to focus in on 3 methods of paying down debt. So the first method comes down to the debt stacking method. And this is also called the Debt Avalanche Method. Now, what this focuses on is the highest interest first, those items that carry the highest interest. So for example, in the unsecured environment that we've been looking at through this theme in the last month, the one that would immediately come to mind would of course be the payday loans with the highest interest rate, the highest interest bearing account that you can have. Now, the debt stacking approach, the debt avalanche approach would wipe out that type of debt first. And you would go step by step to pay down and off your debt based on the interest rate alone. So second method comes down to the Debt Snowball Method. Now, this focuses on the lowest balance, not the highest interest. So you would end up paying off those balances that are lowest first to give you some level of momentum going into the preceding debts accordingly. Now with this, once you pay off the lowest one, you end up taking the difference of what you would have been paying on that debt, and you pay that on the second debt in order to pick up steam, to have that snowball grow. So the third method I want to propose today comes down to the debt margin method. Now this method builds in options to your personal finances. And what it does is it takes low interest-bearing alternatives and combines debt into those. So for example, I brought up previously a vehicle that you may have equity in. Now a vehicle is a secured loan, so you can take that vehicle and go take the loan to value amount that you can out of it. Of course, you want to be mindful, being that it's a depreciating asset, and you want to be sure that you are not taking out more than the market value for that vehicle. But nonetheless, you take out that difference between what you owe and what it is worth, and you take that amount and you put it directly to your highest interest bearing account. So if you have a payday loan, if you have a line of credit or a credit card, cash advance of some kind, you basically take that money and you put it directly to those debts. Now, from that point, once you have a combined loan, you are basically then going to ensure that you don't have any other debt. If you do, then you are going to focus on one debt at a time based on its interest rate, knocking those out. And then you'll come back and take that difference of each of those loans and put it towards that larger combined loan to get that paid off aggressively. So each method will have you organize your debt based on interest rate differently. And so therefore, I broke down a 12-step process of looking at how the debt margin method works and how you would then structure the pay down and pay off of your highest interest to your lowest interest related items, so that you're constantly feeling that progress, but you're also experiencing that progress because you're not paying so much to the interest and you're paying as much as possible to the actual principal that you owe. So the first step would come down to paying off any payday loans, anything that has an absurdly high interest rate, absurdly high APR. And so focus on this one first, because this one can typically be somewhere in the triple digit range when it comes to an interest rate. So the second step comes down to paying off your credit card cash advance loans. So oftentimes these can have a 20% or higher APR attached to them. So you want to pay this off as soon as possible, especially being that it's affecting your utilization and probably negatively affecting also your credit rating, your credit score. And so you want to be mindful of paying that down below that 30%. So the third step comes down to paying off your credit cards. These typically have 15 to 18% annual percentage rate attached to them. And that's why it's important for you to prioritize these to get these paid off. So the fourth step is to pay off your line of credit. Oftentimes these have a 12% or even higher percentage rate attached to them. So it is important for you to make it a priority to pay this off next. So the fifth step is to pay off personal loans or signature loans. These oftentimes have an interest rate of 10% or more. And so you want to prioritize making sure to get these ones paid off as well. The sixth step is paying off any recreational vehicles. Now, these in particular have fluctuating interest rates based on what you qualified for, but typically are about 6%. So the seventh step comes down to paying off your vehicle loans. So these typically have an interest rate of 2 to 3%. And unless you are utilizing your equity to then pay off one of the higher items above this line item, then you should focus on paying this one off. So step 8 comes down to paying off your student loans, which typically in today's environment have an interest rate of 2 to 5%. Now you may have aged student loans that have a higher percentage than that, but you'll want to be mindful of getting these paid off, being that you cannot bankrupt these. These cannot be removed if they're federally backed. So step 9 comes down to paying off your HELOC, your home equity line of credit, or your home equity loan. And these typically have a percentage rate of about 4%. And you'll want to pay this off because this actually is secured by your home. And you'll just want to be mindful of this being the next step to get it paid off before you attack your home loan itself. So step 10 comes down to paying off your primary residence, paying off your home loan. And these right now are hovering between 3 to 4%, but that will be the next step in paying off your debt in that order. So step 11 really comes down to rental properties. If you don't have a rental property, you don't have a secondary residence or a second home, then you can disregard of this step. But this step really goes down to paying off that home equity line of credit or that home equity loan that you may have. Now, this typically has an interest rate of 5 to 6%. And so you want to be mindful of getting that paid off as soon as possible. So step 12 really comes down to paying off your secondary or rental property home loan. So with that, you may have a property that is a family heirloom that you have a loan on, or you have a vacation property, or you have a rental property. And this is the one that you want to pay off next, being that the interest rate will typically be somewhere in the 4 to 5% range. So that would be the next and final step in taking the 12 steps to use this method, use the debt margin method to paying off your debt. So I didn't go into the business related debt, and I didn't do that because that is outside of your personal sphere per se. And I want to focus first on your personal finances, the finances that you have for your household. Then you can move on to your finances for your business and actually approaching that with a payoff plan that works for that. So each of these methods have pros and cons associated to them, but it's important for you to look at which method works best for you so that you feel that momentum, feel that progress, and don't slump into just trying to find an instant solution, an instant gratification approach to your debt, because oftentimes there is not a quick fix to getting out of debt. It's easy to get into debt, but it's not necessarily easy to get out of debt. So there are so many detractors from you building margin into your life, from you paying off your debt. And many of these come down to having some lifestyle creep that you've experienced as your income has grown, or having influence or pressure from marketing campaigns or from your family, friends, or neighbors. But it's important for you to look at this from the standpoint of playing the long game and not being short-sighted, looking at where you want your finances to be and focusing in on that vision for your finances that then is broken down into steps that are palatable for you. And that's why these 3 methods are here to help you in your journey to paying off debt. So my call to action today really comes down to finding that method that works best for you, going through these 3 methods and committing to one of them, committing to a method that works for you and your lifestyle, to paying down these debts accordingly. If this information is helpful to you, please do like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you're reminded to come back on a daily basis and improve in managing your personal finances. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.